Austin! Stunner! Wait a minute! Another kick! Austin, he got it! The stunner!
He shares a fear with the touch. Oh no!
What's up, Diablo 4 Barbarians? Let's go over the build that you want to play if you want to be one of the fastest pit runners in the game, whether you want to carry your friends to nightmare dungeons or you want to go ahead and get as much material as possible so you can start masterworking items. This is your build. So, for starters, this is meant for a pit speedrunning build, more so than really like a tormented uber boss killer, but you can kind of respec it to that if you want to, but those builds already exist, and I wanted to deliver something new to you guys, which is going to be one of the fastest pit runners because, well, the pit is a source of materials that you do definitely need to get. So for starters, let's go over basically what makes this build so strong. At the end of the day, you've probably already seen or heard about the Bash Barbarian and why it's so strong. If not, well, all you do is you temper on damage with Bash. So you have Bash cleaves for a huge amount of bonus damage. That's essentially what makes Bash so good. You combo that with the Pain Gorger Gauntlets, the aspect of the Moonrise, as well as the Rapid aspect, and you have a recipe to just absolutely just shred content. And because the way Pain Gorger Gauntlets work is you have to activate another skill. Normally people would run something called Steel Grasp that has to kind of throw out something, then it pulls the enemies back. It takes a really long time, so what makes it so much faster, and the reason why you'd want to play this build, is because it is just objectively way faster, because you can actually just dash into the enemies, hit all of them, and then you just kind of move them where you want to, and you're going to be stunning them consistently. It is the Cold Stone Stunner build, so we're going to be getting so much stun in the build. That's essentially also what is new with the build, so let's go over that as well. So with the ability to temper on your pieces of gear, you can get concussion now. Now, you're probably not going to get 39 ranks. I was just curious to know what was the highest number that you can get. You can get 39, and what's great with it is you don't even have to like temper and get really lucky and hit it on something that's super rare, because the concussion ranks over here are very flexible because it's on the utility, so don't worry if you don't happen to get the highest roll. You can roll it in multiple different areas. You can just get a couple pieces of gear. You can get up to 6 on each one if you do masterwork it, but for the most part, this is without even putting any points into it. You can just put one piece of gear, can give you up to 6 with it, and that is because you can just temper on your helmet, you can put it on your pants as well as on your boots, that bonus to concussion. And it's not one of the stats that you normally would need, like the defensive area on a lot of the armor pieces. So even if it doesn't roll, don't worry too much about it. It's very flexible. You actually go way over the amount that you need, but it just adds a lot more stagger. So the boss fights tend to be a lot faster, because even if you do a lot of damage, sometimes these bosses, they have phases that go away. So if you're able to kind of build up that stagger bar and keep them holding still, it's just much easier. Look at this. I'm taking the waves over here that Lilith just went ahead and spawned. This is on a 80, and you could definitely push way higher with this. I don't happen to have the most perfect pieces of gear. This is kind of just another build that I decided to go ahead and play, and then consecutively on the stream people were like, dude, give me your build, it looks way faster, how is your build so much faster? So this is kind of like an earlier version of the build, but it can definitely shred content very fast. Again, if you start masterworking, you can go way higher than 80, but I would say it's probably going to be designed around like 100 once you start masterworking your stuff. If you have the right pieces of gear, you are going to be stunning very efficiently. And also, Bash already has stun built in, and on top of that, Enhanced Bash allows you to make it so when you damage a stunned enemy, you gain a bunch of fortification. So this concussion chance to actually stun enemies is super good for the build, not only for survival, but it just kind of keeps enemies in place so they're not essentially stunning you. So the whole goal with this is, again, the stunner build. So you're just walking in, and look at the cooldown on my charge. Just watch how fast it comes back. So I just charged right over there, it's back right up. And the reason why it comes back up, and this is kind of a frequently asked question while I was streaming, why is my charge as well as my leap just so fast on cooldown? So the reason why is there are two different things here that most people may not actually run. So it is the Rage of Harrogath, the chest piece that makes it so when you inflict bleed on an enemy, and we're going to be inflicting bleed on every single hit, we're going to have a chance to reduce the cooldowns of our skills. So that's multiple over there. There's also a thing over on the Paragon board that we can put in called Disembowel, which makes it so when we kill a bleeding enemy, which is every single enemy, we have a 10% chance to reduce the cooldowns of one of our non-ultimate active cooldowns by 1 second. So that's how I have all these up very fast. There's also another thing called Marshal. which is really good. That also makes it so when you shout, you reduce the cooldown of all your other non-shout skills by 2 seconds. You can also play Yen's Blessing, because when a shout activates from that, that's extra shout for cooldown reduction. So that's another optional thing that if you want to run. So that goes over the kind of like the explanation of the cooldown. So let's go ahead and go over the skills, the items, the skill tree, as well as the Paragon board. So starting with the skills, obviously charge. I mean, we charge in, then we just hit them with bash, and that's essentially what is getting all of our damage. You do need to make sure that you're hitting the enemy with charge, because that's how Pain Gorgers proc. Otherwise, if you're just bashing into the enemies, you're going to deal like a lot less damage. Although in Sigil 80, I can just auto these things even without charging. Most of the stuff will just die anyways here. But bash is our main source of damage, and then we have challenging shout. So this is for damage reduction, and then we have Warcry for extra damage, and then we have leap, so we can go ahead and jump through walls. I mean, if you're not running leap and you're running speed running Barbarian, I don't know what you're doing, because this is one of the best skills in the game, especially because there's a lot of areas that may be dead ends, or if you want to, like in one of the clips in the intro, you saw us just kind of fly through the wall, and that's because bash allows you, as long as the door is open. That's the thing with Diablo, that as long as the door is open for that path, if the door is closed, the leap won't work. But as long as that door is open in the area, you can just straight up leap through the wall, which is going to significantly increase your speed runs in terms of time. Also, it is another brawling skill, and we're going to have 100% uptime on berserking because of leap, as well as charge because they are brawling skills. This is also something kind of different here in our build. And then iron skin, so we can just kind of stand still. And you'll see that on most of the bosses, I'm going to play consecutive fights over here, so you're going to see us just do back-to-back pit runs. And you can see I'm just like standing on the AoE, boom, right there, no problem. And that is because iron skin is just really strong. And then for our technique, we run the two-handed sword. So the reason why we run the two-handed sword is because, well, the two-handed sword allows us to apply bleed on every single one of our attacks. Now, the axe is something that some people do like to play as well, which can give you more damage, but you really do need that bleed for specifically that cooldown reduction. A quick word from Mobalytics, which is the sponsor, and that's literally the site that we've been using for years to actually build our builds in Diablo. Mobalytics has some of the best builds. Whether you're a advanced player that wants to run some of the top tier builds to just absolutely delete bosses in the endgame in just 1 or 2 seconds, whether you want to go ahead and make your own builds and add them to the Mobalytics community, or just go ahead and try to play some of the meta builds, there's different searches for everything in the website. And on top of that, one of my favorite things as a content creator for Mobalytics allows me to add this section over here to explain certain things. How do you get 100% crit in a build? How do you do certain things? I really like the ability to actually add text to add a little bit more variety, or tell people different things that you could run for very specific niche builds. If you haven't used the Mobalytics app before or visited the website, definitely go ahead and check it out, as they have actually made some recent updates that are quite nice. Specifically, one update that I really liked was being able to see the Paragon boards, all of the stats on the top right, so you know how many stats are going to be allocated for your glyphs in Diablo form. They've even got a desktop app if you want to download it, which will make it so it'll be super easy so you can't mess up the build. But go ahead, guys, check out the site. It'll be linked down below. Have some fun. And next up, we've got the aspects as well as the items. So for starters, we want to go ahead and actually run Undying, or you can run anything that gives you some sort of damage reduction, or if you happen to have the Harlequin Crest or the Test Count, those are all other options. The most important thing is really just getting that cooldown reduction, really. But you can get whatever you want in the Helm slot. For the most part, it is flexible. However, cooldown reduction is the key thing here. And another thing that is really good to get is 1 resistance on every piece of gear that I'm about to mention. You don't have to specifically get cold resistance in your helmet or in your pants, the fire resistance, but just get 1 piece of resistance in every single piece of gear, and you'll be pretty much good to go for the ones I'm about to mention. Basically, you don't have to have it in your helm, but it can help. You can get it in your pants, you can get it in your boots, you can get it in your amulet, you could also temper it on, but the other tempering is much better in the defensive, which is Imposing Presence, which can give you, like, you can get like over 100k life with Barbarian, which is crazy. And then we have the rings also. You can get resistances here if you do need to kind of fill it out. It just depends on what you roll, but if you really need to, you can roll instead of Imposing Presence on 1 your piece of gear. If you're just missing that 1 piece of extra resistance, that's totally fine too. It depends, again, on your build and kind of your RNG. But specifically, getting 1 resistance is key on a lot of pieces of gear as a Barbarian. Then next up, for the chest piece over here, this is what's giving us extra cooldown. So when we inflict bleed, yeah, we're gonna get extra cooldown. It also does give us extra physical crit strike chance, as well as damage reduction from enemies that are bleeding, and we always do bleed, so it actually is quite defensive as well, so it's very good for that. But Tierlist can be another option, but if you want to be the fastest, well, I mean, you just need the extra cooldown reduction. That's what makes it so good. And then this, you have to have Pain Gorgers. It's just way too good to skip out on. It just gives you a huge, massive multiplier to your basic attacks. And then we are also running the aspect of Might, and you want to try to get ranks to Bash here. You can also get just 1 stat of armor, and then again, Imposing and Presence, and bonus to Concussion on every single piece of gear that you can get it in, except for the amulet. That one's like definitely flexible. And then for the boots, you obviously want movement speed on boots. You can get strength or life, and then 1 resistance, extra movement speed, extra bonus to concussion. Again, this is the stunner build. Look at the boss. He's literally not moving. He's just sitting there. He's just waiting to get whacked and stunned to oblivion. And then we've got the 2 aspects that need to go on your big 2-handers. Okay, this is important. Aspect of Moonrise in one of the 2-handers, as well as the rapid aspect in one of the 2-handers. Those are what you want to go ahead and actually put in. And the reason why is they basically give you double the stats. And then if you want faster clear speed with bosses with consistent vulnerability, the aspect of a Cursed Touch, once the target is hit by this, it's got a lucky chance to make them inflict with a vampiric curse. All you're using it for is that. You technically get these other explosions and damage. It doesn't really matter too much, but this is actually one of the most important things to get if the boss takes very long to kill. Now, if you're killing the boss so fast, it doesn't really matter. You can swap this for Intercom, and you can still kill the boss within maybe just 3 or 5 seconds. And then at that point, you can drop this. You can also run a transfer lucky hit as well on your rings, but the Cursed Touch just makes it permanent in terms of the vulnerability, which I do really like at the end of the day. But again, play what you want to. You just need some sort of source of vulnerability. Steel Grasp does work, but I hate that skill. It's just way too slow for me to enjoy. If it's on the boss, it's not that bad. But in terms of just clearing stuff, I mean, I just charge right in, and then I can just charge again. Like, it's just, this build is way more satisfying to play. Just play it once, and you can definitely tell a difference between the Barb build that most people are running that is using Steel Grasp. I'm not going to say Steel Grasp is bad. It is objectively the highest pushing build, but realistically, for 99% of the player bases, I think most people would way prefer this build because it's way, way faster and it's smoother for its gameplay experience. But in terms of the highest pushing, yes, the Steel Grasp can be good because you can do things with Holy Bolts that you might not be able to do because you can stack all of them right on top of each other. But when it is just doing speed up to, let's say, 100 pits, yeah, speed is going to be king, so I'm not going to be running that thing. I just hate the animation. Again, if you played the build and you try both of them, come back and let me know what you think. Next up, though, for the amulet, we want to run the aspect of adaptability, so that's going to give us extra damage here. We are running Edge Masters here because Edge Masters is great because we're going to be at max energy the whole time. And then we want to run Bold Chieftains over here because Bold Chieftains is going to give us extra cooldown reduction. And if you want to get that lucky chance to make enemies vulnerable, that is technically another option. Again, it's either that or you run a Cursed Touch. I kind of prefer a Cursed Touch, but if you run a Cursed Touch, you don't need to run both. It's just something to go ahead and mention here. And then as far as the rolls on all the pieces of gear, again, the most important things that are obviously with the non-uniques because these you can't change. Getting cooldown reduction, getting life, strength, resistances are all great. And then if you can get armor on one piece of gear, that's totally fine too because you need it to get that cap without running like Juggernaut. Unless you happen to have like really good high rolls on the masterworking and you greater affix the strength, yeah, that is going to be quite nice. But as far as weapons go, strength, vulnerable damage, you can get flat damage, maximum life, those are all great. And then for the offensive, you can run damage while berserking. You do need to reach a certain amount of damage while berserking to get a bonus of up to like 30x multiplicative damage on the Paragon board, which we'll go over once we go over that. But the specific thing that you have to craft first is that bash cleaves for whatever damage. If it doesn't roll that when you temper it, the item's bricked. That's just how it works. But that's the most important thing, is that damage while berserking. If you want to also craft crit damage as far as the tempering, you have to swap to a rogue and actually roll it on the rogue class. So that is something to note if you do want to go ahead and do that. But ideally, what you're looking for on most pieces of gear is attack speed over really anything. Attack speed is definitely the primary stat that you're looking for, as well as getting that crit strike chance. That is very important as well. Getting that every single area that you can. Cooldown reduction, attack speed, crit strike chance, those are your god stats. And then for the gems, you want to run the topaz, the ruby, as well as the diamond. This is pretty like standard for like every single build for the most part. The diamond doesn't have to be diamond. If you're missing another resistance and you have some in another area, whatever, just go ahead and throw in whatever one you're missing. But specifically topazes and rubies are the ones where like it's going to be in every single build. Now that we've went over the gear, let's go ahead and now run into the skill tree. So as far as the skill tree goes, we don't need to put another point into the higher area of bash because, well, we only need the enhanced bash because we're not playing like the Hoda build, which is another great build, by the way. It gives you crazy amounts of damage, but for speed, it's just objectively slower. And then we're running the Martial Vigor as well as Imposing Presence. A lot of this stuff is tempered on as well. Great stuff. If you have Harlequin Crest, you don't need to put a point into this, but if you want to put another point here, that's totally fine. I love Iron Skin, though, for bosses. This is more so for pushing, and I just like being able to spam it. If you have Yen's Blessing, this thing is really great because it doesn't cast unless your abilities are on cooldown, and because you can't activate this when you're at full HP, it won't like waste it, which is something that's very nice. So then we're running Warcry over here. I like the one that gives us extra fortification, charge, since we're going to be stunning. Enhanced charge is excellent. You have to get it. And then power charge for more cooldown reduction. If you want to remove Raid Leader, that's fine too. I just like it because if you're hit by poison, sometimes your HP goes down. But most of the time, like I'm at like max potions here. Like I barely have to activate them in most circumstances. Sometimes maybe the boss hits me kind of hard. But again, you can just activate your Iron Skin. You'll be fine. Then Battle Fervor. This is what gives us that huge amount of Berserking consistency. So like our Berserking like legitimately like does not end, which is what makes this so dang good. Look at that like charge over there. We even hopped over the wall, and like that's why I love Leap so much, man. Just going through walls is one of my favorite things to do in this build. But yeah, this just gives us the ability to keep up our Berserking, then extra crit, some damage reduction, and then we get defensive stance. You can get more damage with counter offensive if you want even more damage. Hamstring, just because remember we're always going to be applying bleed, so it just applies that crowd control effect, so we can get extra crit. And then heavy-handed, wallop, as well as concussion. Concussion is so dang good because, well, I mean, the whole point of this build is to consistently stun things, right? And then we are running unconstrained. This is required because we want that berserking. All right, so for the Paragon board, so in the starter board, territorial. Next up, we are going to be running Martial and Blood Rage. We want to pick this one up. This is the thing I was talking about where you want damage while berserking. Once this is at 30x, you're done. You don't need any more berserking. You can get that on your rings as well as your weapons when you temper. And then we're going to go into Exploit. We're going to be picking this up for more attack speed, so Carnage Exploit. And then we go up over here to Decimator and Might. So we're going to get all this extra damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. And then we're going to get Warbringer over here. And then we're going to get the extra resistance here. And we are going to be getting Disemboweled. This is how we get extra cooldown reduction in our build that other builds may not have. And then we're going to go back over here and connect the board over here. And then we are going to be getting, for the final one, Bone Breaker Ire. The reason why we get this one over here, it's just, it gives you an extra set of damage reduction while healthy. The rest of the boards don't really give you anything. And then we are just going to be getting this, so we take less damage while we are berserking. But that's going to pretty much wrap up the build. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you have any questions, let me know down below. But if you guys enjoyed it and you're new here and you want to see more updates to this build, hit subscribe, turn the bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon. Take care, and I will catch you on the next video. Check out Mobalytics down below. Peace out.